Let's get into news or noise, though. We talked about it a little bit a couple segments ago. We'll pick up the conversation with what we talked about with our buddy Jordan Schultz of The Score, NFL Insider. We appreciate his time joining us here on this holiday weekend. But this new kickoff rule, we've heard a number of coaches rail against this kickoff rule where if you catch the ball inside the 25-yard line or so, you can fair catch it and get the ball at the 25. Well, Super Bowl winning head coach, two-time Super Bowl winning head coach Andy Reid had this to say at the Chiefs OTAs about this new rule and how it's going to change the game.
I don't know. We'll have to go through all that. My thing is, where does it stop, right? So you start taking pieces and, we'll see how this goes. But you don't want to take too many pieces away or you'll be playing flag football.
The harsh words saying that we're playing flag football. My guess, Michael, that this is pretty impactful, but based on the reaction from around the league.
Well, I think to me, if you're running a league and you've got guys like Belichick and Andy Reid and John Harbaugh who value the kicking game, like wouldn't you call them on the phone and say, give me the reasons why we shouldn't do it? I'm not saying you're not going to try to do it, but how about just ask these guys, like, why would this be a bad idea? If you ever want to reinforce your ideas, then read the opposite side. Learn why they think it's a bad idea. But the league just mandates this because, that's what they say. And so this because they have data. Sometimes they can provide data to support their arguments. Sometimes they can't. Well, football Thursday night, there's no significant data on injuries. Okay, well, you don't have that data, but you have it on kickoff. Like, it's really a kangaroo court, And so I think, to me, one of the values of having guys with experience, Pete Carroll, Andy Reid, Bill Belichick, Mike Tomlin, guys that have coached a long time in this league, ask them why this is a bad idea. But don't ask some of the younger coaches because they're still struggling to figure out how to do the job.
Mm-hmm. Have you seen the XFL kickoff by chance? I don't know how much XFL you were able to watch this past spring. It's interesting. So what they do, they'll have the kicker line up kind of in the traditional 30-yard line or so, but then you'll see the kickoff team lined up at the opposing team's 35 and then the return team lined up at the 30. So they're literally 5 yards apart and they kick it off, and then it's to help prevent heavy collisions with the two sides kind of running into each other, and which would also lead to concussions. So it's kind of proposed as a safer way to do it. I don't know if the NFL would ever implement it, but at least it would allow us to have some sort of a play and at least add some sort of strategy to the game versus just legislating the play completely out of it to where now it's just kind of a ceremonial kind of procedure of, all right, just
why are we even going through the exercise?
Yeah, it's
going to be, how would you like to be Cordell Patterson? You're trying to get in the Hall of Fame. Maybe 2 more returns get you in the Hall of Fame. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, you're trying to get in the Hall of Fame, and now all of a sudden you just cut this out? To me, there's no rhyme or reason. And if you're trying to cut, I get the player safety. But then don't change the Thursday rule.
Yeah. You're kind of talking out of both sides of the mouth, which the league has done. I sent you a direct message on Twitter. It's a video of the XFL kickoff. You want to take a look at maybe during one of the breaks there. It's a little bit different, a little unorthodox, but I think at least would give us something versus just everyone just being a touchback and starting at the 25-yard line. Let's continue on with news or noise. And this one comes out from the New England Patriots. The Patriots were recently docked 2 OTA sessions, and Bill Belichick was fined $50,000 for violating NFL offseason rules. Now, according to league sources, the New England Patriots were stripped of those 2 OTA days because coaches' scheduling that resulted in players spending more than their allowed time at the team facility. Is this impactful or insignificant?
Well, it's insignificant. I mean, because I think they went over by 15 minutes. And, and it was the younger players that were trying to get more time with the coaches to learn what was going on. It wasn't mandated you've got to be here 15 minutes longer. It was players trying to learn more. Again, a disconnect between the league and what makes it. Young players are behind. They want to be at the facility 6-7 hours a day. They want to learn. Nobody's making them do it. It's voluntary, right? But if you want to grow and learn in your profession, you stay there. And 2 practices removed and 15 minutes. I mean, as I said earlier in the show, teams are really scared to death about getting fined and losing practices. So they've kind of eliminated. I mean, the Bengals haven't even had an off-season day, OTA day. I mean, the way the league is constructing the rules, they're taking away all that. And the cause and effect of this is why we have bad offensive line play, why we can't develop young offensive linemen, why defensive linemen take a long time, because we're not allowed to work with them. They're not allowed to learn it. They have to get out of the building. It's kind of unfair. It's unfair because the younger players are trying to improve. Look, everybody, they cheated. Okay, great. That's what everybody would say about the Patriots. Cheated. The players are trying to get better. They have a culture there to improve. Nobody's making them stay in the building, but once it happened, it happened.
Yeah, it's Bear Bryant Junction boys. That's what people think that's going on over there in New England.
I mean, it's absurd. I mean, when we used to have days, we would have one-on-one offensive lineman, defensive lineman. You'd have 9-on-7 with no pads on. There was a lot of contact. And players learned. Part of the OTA days is you're teaching the players how to learn how to practice. Because when you have the regular season, you don't want to have to beat up on everybody every time. But you got to learn how to practice effectively. And if you don't teach them how to do it in the spring, they don't learn it in the fall. So again, another disconnect.
Yeah, and I think the point about teaching them how to practice, people might think that's crazy. They've played football all their years, but it's different than when you're in actual NFL practice. Like, it's just knowing how to stay on your feet during an NFL practice. Because once we get to training camp, guys are trying to make teams. They're fighting for their lives. And it's some of those lower-level guys, like the 7th-string tight end, maybe they're going a little extra hard, and all of a sudden they get a veteran hurt, and that's not what you want at training camp.
Right. When you go to practice in the summer, I've said this many times, when you walk out to practice during summer camp, you're holding your breath on injuries. When you walk out to practice in week 4 of the season, you're not even thinking about injuries.
Yep.
Because the team knows how to practice. The players know how to practice. They stay off the ground. Nobody tries to do anything stupid, right? They understand. They've learned how to play and practice. And if you don't teach that in the spring, you're going to not get there. You're going to get more injuries. You're going to gain more injuries by that.
What do you make of this next one here? The NFL investigating a second wave of possible gambling violations. This is from ESPN's David Purdom, their gambling reporter, said that there's a second wave of potential violations of the gambling policy. This would follow the multiple suspensions the league issued in April due to gambling-related violations. Impactful or insignificant?
Oh, I think it's impactful. I think the players, I don't think the teams have done a good enough job of educating the players on, look, it's not, you can't do it here in the building. You want to bet basketball? Go ahead. You have an app at home, do it at home, but you can't do it here. Like, it's got to be reinforced every single day because, unfortunately, like your playbook, like everything, if you don't reinforce it, if you don't emphasize it, it's not going to get handled. And I think, obviously, if Detroit, they didn't emphasize it.
Yeah.
So I think it's got to be. I think this is an ongoing battle the league's going to have to. Because it's education. You got to tell the players what they can and can't do.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.